Hey, Composing Gloves here, and today we're going over a free VST. We're going over the Fletchy Muncher. This VST is supposed to expose harshness in your mix, but the way it does it is basically it applies an EQ curve to your mix, and if it sounds harsh afterwards, it would deem it as you should probably fix that. It does this by using the Fletchy Muncher curve. So if you are, and if I turn this knob here, it will actually show you like, oh, look, there's an EQ. It boosts the mids, cuts the highs and the lows, and it looks like an inverted Fletchy Muncher curve. This is really nifty, but at the same time, it's a little bit dangerous. So if you're already pretty good at mixing, you really don't need something like this. This is something that maybe a new person could find useful for if their mixes sound really out of whack, but there's no substitute for just getting really good references. So you reference on some headphones, reference your mix on your monitors, on your friends' monitors, on your car, on your grandma's car, and your great-grandma's car, your great-great-grandma, if she's still around, do her car. But, you know, only if she's got good speakers. Maybe she doesn't even have a car anymore. Who knows? So anyways, we're moving on. As I turn this up, we see that this Fletchy Muncher curve is sort of an inverted thing. It gets applied to your mix. What's the idea behind this? Well, if you are mixing, or if you, let's say that you finished your mix and you're listening to it at a party and they turn it up and suddenly the mids are jumping out like crazy, but you're like, what the heck? At my house and on my speakers, they weren't jumping out like that. It sounds totally different. And the mixing, I was in the audio engineering course I went through. I was in an audio engineering course. We had these mix competitions where everyone would mix the exact same song and we'd put it up there. And a ton of people were like, that did not sound like how I thought it sounded, because on their headphones, it sounded way better. But over those speakers and that environment, it sounded totally different and many times worse. And as the semester progressed, a lot of people got way better at mixing because they began to understand that you should probably listen to something more than just your headphones. You should listen to it in the car, listen to it on your headphones, different headphones, your friend's headphones, and you begin to get a feel for what your stuff sounds like so you can compensate for it. And you get this better idea of how things will translate in others across other systems. But one of the things you can do is you can turn it up here. And the point is that it didn't sound the way you wanted. And this thing is supposed to enable you to sort of catch some of that beforehand. So naturally, when you turn up a volume knob, it is going to even out the spectrum. The low frequencies will sound louder and fuller. The high frequencies will come in and sound fuller. And it will ideally sound more even as you turn it up. But if you have an unfair boost in your spectrum, if your mids are louder or maybe they're being masked by some other parts of the spectrum, when you apply the change with your volume knob, you'll begin to get some results you didn't expect. Oftentimes, especially even in the car when I'm driving, I don't know why I'm saying even in the car, but when I'm driving, I'm listening to something on the radio, suddenly you come across that one mix that treated the mids a little harshly. There's some element in there that treats them kind of like, woo. And when I turn it up enough, it sounds like it's jumping into my ear with a knife and just cutting my eardrum up. Like, it just doesn't feel that great. My tympanic membrane's going, get this junk out of here. And I turn the volume down and it fixes it because I'm restoring the balance that they mixed it to at. So it's important. We talk about levels you should mix at in the mixing series. But again, I highly advocate just figuring out what element it is in your track that's doing that and fixing it there. So this thing, as you can see, it's just boosting the mids and cutting the lows and highs so you can locate these elements faster. That's how you can think of it as, because your ear is naturally going to find these things anyways. So they say on their thing, you should be able to go up to default and only experience a slight increase in harshness or those frequencies that jump out at you. I have a track here that's got a twangy guitar. I believe it's right here. Let me just play for you a little segment of it. No, it's over here. That da-na-na-na-na. You see how it pops out a little bit more? That's because it also jives with the way your ear naturally enhances frequencies because of the ear canal thing. It's all covered in the critical listening series. So that's really interesting. Now, if we boost that, naturally that's going to jump out way more. Like at an unnatural, it'll get literally a natural boost that the other frequencies around it won't get. So if we turn it up here, so that was with it bypassed. The da-na-na-na. So now we're going to go ahead and go up to default and listen to it. and we see, oh, that's not so bad. So right now that could probably be a limit. If we go up to excessive though, we see we get a much more substantial boost and the cuts become more severe. So that one is, I mean, it's okay, but so that means, well, and according to this plugin, that'd be like, oh, that's a pretty good mix. But I'm also monitoring too at a pretty low level, which is unfair of me to be doing with this plugin. But I know that it's going to boost it, and I just don't want to experience that. So, but if I were to turn this up, that would become I would not like that. To fix this in the mix, I'd go in and find that guitar, which has frequencies in that area, and just simply fix it. I would turn it down. I'd compress it maybe with a dynamic EQ so it takes away those frequencies specifically only at the times that they exceed those levels. And then I can bring the whole thing up and make it sound louder overall if that was my goal. So that's what this thing does. You might be wondering what the strobe button does. It just flashes to let you know it's still active. So if you have it on your chain and it's in front of you, it'll flash to say, hey, I'm still doing stuff to your sound, so that you can be aware like, oh crap, this is doing stuff to my sound. Get rid of it when you're done experimenting with it. But as you can see here, that's a fine way to do it, but you'll find these things on your own. Just turn the volume knob up. You should mix at the level, well, not necessarily mix at the level because it could be dangerous to mix at loud volumes, even though you might listen to the song at a loud volume. And we talk about that in the mixing series, but you should mix it for the level you think it will be listened to at. Because a lot of people, and why I think this could be quite dangerous, is you might listen to it at the incorrect volume, which I am consciously doing right now because I already understand what this thing would do, is you want to do that because there's no point in mixing your song to sound good at a level you don't think anyone's going to listen to it at. And there's a point where it's just background music. So who cares about the background music crap? Make it sound good for the people who's going to listen to it, who will turn it up and enjoy your music. So yeah, that's what this thing is doing. I hope I answered your questions and clarified some things. If you have any input for me, go ahead, leave it down in the comments. Any questions? I realize there was a lot of talking, but it's kind of a lot of theory. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's just an EQ curve. So I'm sorry if you were like, oh, there's so much talking, but for someone to ask a question about how this thing is and what it does, that's like it. So and I'll show you their website too. So it's made by this noise bud with a clever backwards E. And if you go to their website, I'll put a link in the description. You can get it here and they explain it. They also say right here, you only need this if your mixes/masters are too harsh when playing elsewhere than in your studio. So sometimes when, well, not sometimes, your room will have a sound to it. You got to learn your room's sound. That's just like a given. And if we come down here, you just select the 0 option. You can get it for free. And they also have this, like, they have a whole bunch of other plugins you can check out and look at. So an interesting idea, a cool concept, but you can just get an EQ and do this yourself. I guess the idea is they already have the Fletchy Muncher curves like kind of built in to help you identify those regions where you will naturally find that. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff we could get into theory-wise, and that's what the critical listening series and the mixing series are there for, is to sort of cover some of this stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. Subscribe and have a blessed day.